really count. For folks who have questions, kind of think about what you want to ask. And I'm going to ask for maybe a line to form right here so we can kind of get to you quickly when we get to that. But what I'd love to have is everybody here on the panel to have a few moments to introduce themselves, some folks we've seen in our amazing movie. And if there's some things you want to share with Oakland, please feel free to do so at that time, and then we'll take questions. Does that feel okay?
Yeah.
All right, so.
Okay. It's really a pleasure to be here in Oakland. I especially love environments like this because it makes me think about what change and what community really means. You know, anywhere we can get together, anywhere we can find the truth, anywhere it happens, that's where it has to happen. So we're really honored to be here tonight. And thank all of you for coming out. This has been an amazing journey with this film. I don't know if there's any film that's ever gone through what we have, at least not in this country. Kicked out by the pharmaceutical industry, kicked out of the Houston Gold Cups. We were thrown out of theaters in Phoenix and Boise, Idaho just a couple of weeks ago, and people trying to stop us from coming into states, reaching out to their attorney generals and things like that. And all of that says to me that we obviously have something special. Because if the movie was boring and pointless, then I don't think we would be having that kind of attention. And what the scary part is really how the media has just tried to censor and black out this whole thing, which I think is proof that our democracy is about to collapse. But I really do want to talk about the real heroes in this situation. It's not me, and it's not Andy Wakefield, it's not Holly Tommy. The heroes are those people that don't have a choice. The child's been injured. They go through some incredibly difficult situation. And then, while doing that, are reaching out and trying to warn the rest and shouting from mountaintops and rooftops for many years now, saying they're being lied to, watch out, protect your child, caring about those of us with healthy babies, worrying about us while they're taking care of a situation that they can't really change. And so I always want to honor those people. So if there's anyone in the room right now that has a vaccinated family member, will you just please stand up for one moment? Never get used to seeing them, and we can't get used to it, and we need to end this problem. But I want, for those of you that didn't stand up, just take a moment to think about what we're talking about. You have a perfectly healthy child running around your house, laughing, giggling. Maybe they're saying a few words, I love you, Mommy, I love you, Daddy. And then you take them to the doctor, and you do what you were told you were supposed to do. And then, in an instant, their whole life changes. This child, everything you dreamt about their future, your dreams of the stories you would tell them and try and inspire them to be the best that they could be, all of that now has to be readjusted. All of that changes. That pain, having to handle the fact that your preconceived idea is not going to come true for your child. And if that's not tragedy enough, you go to your doctor and you say, you know, my child's been injured by this vaccine, they're not acting the same. And then they say, oh no, it's not the vaccine. Well, I'm sure it is because they were perfectly healthy, nothing changed, same food, same diet, everything was the same except that vaccine. And they say, would you like to speak to a therapist about this? Apparently you're not handling it fairly well. And then if that doesn't shut you up, and you continue to question that vaccine, and you can expect a visit from Child Protective Services. And now you're fighting to hold on to this child, that your faith and their lie has worked against the whole situation. This is happening every single day in the United States of America. A country that was founded on freedom, supposed to be about being free, allowing people to raise their children the way they believed. Science that's supposed to be well-rounded and thorough, truthful. The government that's supposed to protect the people. And instead they're destroying us. They're ruining our children. And they're not paying for it. And they're blaming the parents for it. And leaving that incredible bill, that incredible difficulty on those families. So I just want those of you that did stand up to know that you've been heard. And the beautiful thing about this film that transcends all of us in this room right now is the world is listening, and Vaxxed is becoming a movement. And the truth is getting out, and the truth will not be stopped. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Suzanne Humphries, and I did not have any involvement in making the Vaxxed movie, but I am in great admiration of these people and of the people that were actually in the film, and of all of you for being here today. I'm used to working amongst cowards. I'm used to working amongst people who see horrible things happen and just try to smooth things out and not taking responsibility. I'm used to people who see the damage that is done, and it's so incredibly deep and vast that they can't admit to it, that they have to just keep covering it over. So I'm so happy to know these people, all of you, who are willing to stand up and take whatever bullets come to them, no matter what form they're in, because that's what we need more of. And you people all out here today shows that you're willing to be here as well, and it's just an honor to be here tonight with all of you. So thank you.
Hi, I'm going to keep this brief because I know you've got precious question and answer time. I just want to say to all your parents that stood up, we are travelling around in that big bus outside these doors, gathering, well, going from Q&As to Q&As, but on the way we're gathering stories everywhere. And one thing is very clear to us all as we do this: it does not matter if you have money or you don't. It does not matter what colour your skin is. It does not matter what faith or even if you have faith. Nothing matters with these vaccines. And this is why it's so important you dump everything. Dump all your problems with your religious wars or your money wars or whatever it may be, and everybody unites and concentrates on this one thing, because this is the future, and we have a duty to protect the unborn, we have a duty to protect the born, and we have a duty to protect the damaged. So please, all of you, you have a duty to tell your story. Please come and see me afterwards, and please rest assured that we will not stop until justice has been done for the damaged, and that we stop mandatory vaccine bills in America.
Greetings, my name is Sister Tisha Muhammad, and I am the mother of 2 vaccine injured. I'm here to fight for you. My son has already been injured. I'm trying to fight for you, and that's why I'm here. And I need you to help me fight for you by joining on with what we're doing here, and to being a part of the 10,000 Fearless that we're doing with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. On October the 14th through the 16th, we will be going to Atlanta to fight the CDC on this issue. And I need everyone, tell everyone you know, because are not fearless. We are fearless. I'm a lioness. And I will fight. I will go to jail. I will be dragged down the street. But I am not going to stand for this. What I have gone through as a mother and having to watch my children never go to prom, never be able to drive, the natural things that you should be able to do. My children are unable to do that. And it is so serious. It's an ongoing, relentless
Andy Wakefield. I'm just a rather flaky doctor who had the audacity to listen to parents and take their stories seriously. And with that, I think we should get on with your questions.
We love you, Dr. Wakefield. Flaky doctor, I beg to do. We owe you tremendous gratitude. We live in a world where we're fighting as African American people and people of color and poor people. We're fighting against racism and all these other isms. And it's very important for us to raise up high and give thanks to allies. We want to raise up high and give thanks to white people, people with money, who use their privilege to help poor people and people of color. And this whole evening was put together by people who I consider to be the most ardent and amazing allies I've ever had the opportunity to work with. So I'm not going to embarrass them, but I want to thank all of the allies that helped make this evening possible. So let's give them a round of applause. And 30-some years ago, when my first babies were born, I did not vaccinate, and everyone thought I was crazy. And things have only gotten worse. I'm glad to hear and see all of these voices raised up high on behalf of our kids. And the big push of what the work that I do with parents is helping them to let go of any concept that they are crazy. My work with parents is to help them remember that they made that baby and nobody knows that baby better than them. I don't care how many letters after their name. I don't care if they come from the government. I don't care if they have no money than you. I don't care if they're trying to take your housing away or trying to cut your food stamps because your child is not immunized, and that's happening. Nobody knows your child better than you. And our government, being a good village, we should support that. And we don't, so that's why we're here tonight. Who has the first question?
So I understand.
Yeah,
You can say that.
Right here, okay, can you hear me? I'm a speech therapist. I used to work for Children's Hospital Oakland. And I had a daughter, she's almost 20, totally fine. In the late 90s, parents were telling me as I was evaluating their kids, my child used to talk, and then he was vaccinated and then he stopped talking. And I believed them, and nobody else believed them in my department or in the hospital. And they all told me those parents don't know what they're talking about. So I just want to tell you, then my son had 5 reactions to vaccines. He's mostly recovered, but he's good. But, and so when I talked about it and tried to tell parents, I was kind of hushed up at the hospital and I left and I work privately and I'm seeing it more and more. But whenever I see people post that stupid article on Facebook that there was once a doctor and he did a study and it was completely made up, I tell them that study has been duplicated and the same results were found. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that. And I said, have you read the actual study? Because the study, that everything was ethical in the study. And so before you start saying he's a fraud, and what do I say to my friends and people who are posting this? I'm defending you the best I can, and I'm telling people to watch Vaxxed, and what do I say?
Firstly, Vaxxed is not about me. Okay, so the story is about fraud at the CDC. That's
Right.
the first thing. So that's no excuse for them not to see that.
Right.
The second thing to say is that go to the website vaxxedmovie.com where we do, in fact there are 2 places you can go. Vaxxedmovie.com where I do an interview explaining exactly what happened with the Lancet paper back in 1998. And on autismmediachannel.com I sit and explain to a lawyer questioning me in short segments about each of the elements of the charges brought against us. What people don't know is that when that case in England came before the English High Court on appeal, it was completely thrown out, completely turned over. None of that finds its way into the mainstream media because they want to maintain the lie that the paper is.
Just to clarify from outside Chad area, there was 13 scientists involved in that paper. And so when someone calls it the Andy Wakefield fraud, I mean, I left the doctor's television show as a producer where I was for 6 years and then decided to work with this guy. For most people and most of my friends, that's career suicide, so I looked into this other hoax. But what you have to think about is they call it the Andy Wakefield fraud, and they say he manipulated and used fake data and made this fake paper. Well, of those 13 scientists, many of them were the top in their fields, top scientists in the field, a peer-reviewed paper that every one of them had to sign off on every word. They gave him notes. We don't agree with this. They were the ones doing the studies, not Andy. He was overseeing it. And so ultimately, you had 13 scientists all sign their name to it. You explained to me if you were really going to pull off the fraud and use fake data, how would you get that through the gauntlet of 13 top scientists? You can't do it. I mean, that right there it would make him the most diabolical genius. I spent too much time with him to think that he's that. And the point also is, of those 13, 2 lost their license. 2 main guys were Andy Wakefield and Professor John Walker Smith. And at that moment, they both made 2 different decisions. John Walker Smith went for appeal to say that this was not right, and Andy Wakefield decided to go and continue to warn the rest of us and try and protect our children. Went on to make several movies. This is his 2nd film. Other short documentaries you would find on the website. Worked very hard with Polly Tommy. Andy Wakefield didn't stop. He didn't spend his time trying to exonerate himself. He got out there and tried to save our children. Last week, and said it was one of the most reckless, terrible cases. They had no business making the decisions they made. So the truth is had Andy spent his time appealing, we'd all probably be celebrating this, but we wouldn't have Vaxxed, we wouldn't have this whistleblower story, and we wouldn't be about to tell the entire world the truth. So thank God Andy fought for us instead of for himself.
Morgan, who I understand has been a birth doula for approaching 1,000 births in this community. And that alone is an incredible accomplishment. My thinking is with SB 277, the law that now requires us to immunize and vaccinate our kids with this full litany of vaccines now in order to go to not only public school but private school. What ideas do you have for ways that we can mobilize our communities to circumvent this?
That has been a huge challenge for me. You know, I'm blessed to work with all the families in Oakland, from the wealthiest families to the poorest families. And families are just so maxed out on, poor families for sure, just so maxed out on trying to stay alive and worrying about their sons getting shot by cops and everything else that's going on, that getting families to mobilize has been very, very challenging. So, of course, it's been the more privileged families, and I say that with love and respect and thanks, that have had the energy and the aptitude to be able to go do the advocacy that we see, the pushback that we had, folks showing up in Sacramento in huge numbers and all of that, were mostly not people of color, although people of color are the ones who are going to end up statistically losing the most children. And it's not that black and brown people and poor people don't care about their babies, but they're working 2-3 jobs, and they're trying to stay alive. You know, so one of the things that I attempted to do, and I have done, is that I have looked at the parents of color information about SB 277 and inquiry group on Facebook, and we have been kind of talking to each other and trying to build each other up. And I want this evening to be a springboard for other communities to get together and do the same thing. You know, have a child care co-op. Do what you got to do. The grandmas who are not actively raising the baby, I'm a grandma now, so I can have more time to be an activist. Someone's got to do it. We've got to do it. When we were talking to our people in Sacramento, they were saying, well, black and brown people don't care about this issue. We're not hearing from them. We don't hear from black people. This is a Marin soccer mom thing. That's the exact language. And so that's the impression that they get, but that's the excuse that they give, because it's also kind of, you know, on purpose that certain groups of people are so oppressed that they can't speak up for themselves. You know, there's kind of a deliberateness to that. So I'm open Please come see me after this. We do need to mobilize as parents here in Oakland and all over the state. I mentioned at the last showing that I envision school opening in a few weeks and not a child in any seat, because people have made this decision that they're not going to put stuff in their kids' body that might be problematic. And if we want to have vaccines, they need to be safe. If they were, there should be no problem having a formulation of this medication. It's just a medication. It's not, what? It's a medication. And if there's some ingredients that hurt some people, if it hurts one person, that's problematic. And if it hurts a child, that's incredibly problematic. Children are our future on the planet as a species. So we have to think of these people sitting in boardrooms and sitting on boards of directors and people collecting big fat paychecks who don't give a damn when the human race continues on the planet. Who are these people? Why do we give them our race? I go on about that a great deal, but I really want to make sure there's more time for questions. Thank you.
There's some talk about the UC system also doing something about vaccinations. Now, the SB 277 said kindergarten through 12th grade. But what I've heard recently is that the UC system is not even going to allow medical exemptions. Is that true? And what's going to happen? Because my son is going to Berkeley this year.
I went to one of the UC Board of Regents meetings. The UC schools are going beyond SB 277, even stricter rules on vaccinations. I'm not sure if they're getting rid of the medical exemption, but I think they're going to sort of
But is that
CDCs.
legal? Because how can they do that?
Is any of this legal? At what point did the pharmaceutical industry, and when did we sign off that the United States of America was strictly an allopathic medical, compound? We didn't allow any other approaches to wellness. I don't know when that happened, and I don't know how legal that is, but it's happened. I think that, look, the UC schools, I think if your kids go to school, go to another state. They need to see the loss of money to make choices like that. We don't care about it. And it's very scary. We're fighting it, and we're working on it with several groups to try and bring some sense to the UC system.
Just when they took applications from students, they didn't tell us that this was going to happen.
Right.
So I'm kind of at a loss. How can you just not even allow medical exemptions? What do you expect somebody with a medical exemption actually gets some shots? It's crazy.
Yeah. Do you want to weigh in?
Well, it's like saying you have an allergy penicillin with too bad. You're going to have it mandated anyway. And if you die, well, it will just fill your place with someone else. I mean, that's the situation that we breathe. And there's no point in trying to operate within the system and just walk around, not move around within the shadows. You've got to do something that is outrageous. You've got to take an action that is outrageous. It requires civil unrest to produce change in these circumstances. And if it means that the UC system goes bankrupt because people no longer send their children, they boycott them. It's happened in Texas. It happened at Austin, in the Austin Community College, when they mandated the pneumococcal vaccine, the number of students going out there dropped by 10,000. And they suddenly felt the economic pinch of that. They realized that they were instituting someone else's policy. Public health policy is no benefit to them. And they were paying the price for 10,000 students going down in the world. And so that's what needs to happen here. It needs to be dramatic and drastic, and it needs to hit them in the pocket. They need to understand the significance of what they've become complicit in.
Dr. Humphries, I have a brother who just graduated and is going to become a nurse. And my sister-in-law is a pediatrician, and I love them to pieces. And I really feel like they have been given information that is wrong. And they have no idea why they should not believe everything that has been taught to them in their medical school. And I have a lot of respect for people who complete medical school and who learn a lot of great things. But how do I tell them that they've been deceived? Like what? There's so much out there. There's so much information. There's so many books. There's so many websites. Where do I even begin in terms of saying, this has not been funded by a pharmaceutical company and this information you can trust? Where do you even begin? I know you're very respected and you've done a ton of work and published and all that, so where would you suggest that I point somebody who's been inundated by the medical school system? Why would they even think that they've been lied to?
Do you want to use this? Okay. So you're asking a question about their own personal vaccines or about them just understanding vaccines?
Probably them to wake up to the fact that they've been lied to.
Well, instead of telling them something, I think it's better to ask them something. And I'll tell you, one of the questions that got me to just kind of sit back and go, was somebody said, after I had berated somebody for having unvaccinated children that were playing with hammer and nails, and I said, she doesn't have a tetanus vaccine, she shouldn't be doing that. And somebody said to me, well, what do you actually know about tetanus? And I said, well, I know you don't want to get it, and I know it can cause lockjaw, and then I was like, I really don't know anything. I'm going to go read about tetanus, and so I did, and I found out a lot of really good information, but it's much better, instead of putting them on the offense and telling them what you know, ask them what they know. But you have to know the answer to your own questions, and that's really the key. So you have to go and study something in particular, and then just gently ask them something. You know, don't try to put them on the spot, but just try to get them to start circulating in their head what they don't know. Try to get them to look for something that's not in there. I think that's the best way to go because it opens them rather than closes them.
Well, that's one of the saddest things that's happened around this controversy is how much stress has gone on between family members. Like family members not wanting their children to play with each other anymore. It's even such an insidious thing. We have siblings who won't let their children play with each other. So a lot of kindness and compassion is required on both sides. And then the understanding of that, well, if you've spent so much money invested in a thought pattern, you know, it's hard to shift from that. And if you're a prayerful person, you can pray for them. It doesn't hurt. And continue your activism. The most important thing, the sad thing that I hear too, is people are hiding. Like, I won't talk about it. I won't discuss that my kids aren't immunized because we don't want to have arguments at Thanksgiving. But a healthy family doesn't argue about something at Thanksgiving. So, you know, we just have to be out about it and the hope that the love of the family will help the family find the solution to how to do it.
I just want to say very briefly, the thing to do, which is in the same vein as Suzanne said, is you've got a movie. We've got a movie now that is a very powerful instrument because it's not my opinion, it's not Bill's opinion, it's the senior scientists from the CDC saying, we lied to you, we committed fraud. And the way to get them to do this might be, I really value your opinion on this movie. I really like to, there are some things that have raised questions. You're trained in this, can you just tell me what you think of this? Engagement, and suddenly we've had Christians at many of our screenings. They come there kicking and screaming, dragged in by the parent of the patient, and it's changed their worldview. So get them to watch the movie. It's streaming now online for just under $4. So anyone can watch it. Go to vaxxedmovie.com and you can stream it there. The DVD, the full DVD is going to be coming out. We've got some DVDs for the tour. But please get them to see the film because that's the beginning of the dialogue. Once it raises a question in their mind that what we have been told by the foremost health agency in the world is a lie, just like the doctor says in this. If they lied to me about this, what else have they lied to me about? That's the takeaway message. And it has to be, by default, everything I've heard from them until proven otherwise. So please, that's the beginning of so many people.
Can I add something to that, please? We are planning on having screenings of this film in this community on a regular, ongoing basis.
You, they should.
question for Sister Carmen. I guess my question is, I've been struggling, like, you know, I decided, okay, because of the group that I'm a part of Samsarah, and I feel like, you know, we've been in different dialogues where I'm like, I followed this thing, I opted out, and I did this, and I did that, and then, you know, I need to work. I gotta work. Of just like, the only option that I see, viable option is homeschooling. It's like, how do I mean, I'm doing the entrepreneur thing so I can be able to work, but it's just like, what are the practical solutions for if you opt out and just like feeling like as a Black woman, this system is so big to fight that, and I'm just like, you know, trying to survive, trying to work, can't find a child care if you don't have vaccination. If you want to get government assistance, you gotta have the vaccination shot. So it's kind of like you're left out there to dry, and I feel like I've been bullied into maintaining child care. Like, if you don't get vaccinated, you cannot come back, and we didn't go back. So over the last year and a half, we've been trying to figure it out, but like, on the ground, what are some solutions? Like you said, the Child Care Collective, what is the Nation of Islam doing to address the mothers that's like, I'm not going to do it, but now what?
Well, I have 4 boys in total. After my 2 first boys were vaccine injured, I took my boys out of school, and that's how it got started. I was a single mother and needed to get my children to school so I could go to work. And I was in my last year at UC Berkeley, and they said, well, your children can't come here unless they're vaccinated, and I got them vaccinated. So my remedy, and what I did was, I didn't get those last 2 vaccinated. I took them to Muhammad University. And let me say this, my children compete with the MESA. They play 2nd place, 1st place. The education is better than any, on top of the fact that it has a discipline that helps them to be able to function in regular society as civilized people. None of the craziness that's being produced right now in the Oakland school system. It's a holding place. They're not educating the children. So why take them there anyway? So that they can be able to
I'm a faithful person, you know, I really, really believe in God. And at the end of the day, this is going to bite them all in the ass so bad that they're going to be so sorry that they fucked with us. Over there just, it's going to come back to bite them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm fearful because this puts children in a dangerous situation. Children are not going to be taken to licensed family daycare because they were forced to get those shots. And folks of color and poor folks, we know how to fly under the radar as best we can. What that means is our children will be with unsafe people potentially. And so that we have to hold that on. As we work this through, we have to look at that too. How can we take care of each other? We're coming into this wonderful anarchist time, which I think is going to be a good thing. The government is not doing for us what we need them to do. How can we do it for ourselves? How can we take care of our own children? How can we keep our own bodies healthy and safe? How can we hold our relationships together? There's so much corporate money being made on our misery. How can we take our joy back? So we're going to keep working on it, my love, because I hear you. It's very challenging. Any other questions? Gentleman in blue?
Yes. Just a quick couple of statements to you. I want to know if you can answer. Is it unconstitutional to deny a child an education? And is there a federal judge out there that can rule it unconstitutional, just like they did? The majority of California voted no marriage for gay couples, something like that. The federal judge stepped in and said that's unconstitutional. Is there a federal judge that can do that?
There's a case that's starting just next week. It's going to be heard starting, I think, on the 12th. And it's exactly that. Not only does our nation have a right to an education, but the California Constitution has an extremely strongly written right to an education that we believe has been violated. And there's a suit to try and stall the implementation of SB 277. That's what they're going to try and do right now. It's called an injunction. We'll put an injunction on it and say, while we investigate on safety issues of the vaccines, but even more specifically on the rights of children to be educated. And there's many, many plaintiffs in that. I think one of the, there's many different facets of a very interesting case. I've read all the way through it. But just to give you an idea of what one of the things they're looking at, we in California passed a right for children that are suffering from contagious disease like AIDS or hepatitis B. Those children are allowed to go to school. What the California, we passed a bill that said you cannot be kept from an education just because we're afraid of contagion. That child is allowed to go to school. And so what they're saying is, well, now the unvaccinated children, the presumption of contagion, which is what we're talking about, then should be covered by the same bill that covers contagion itself. And it's not. So very, very interesting. That's one of the points in the case that's going to be coming up. So I would say we all should be praying. It's going to be going down in San Diego. We really do hope that's a federal judge that's going to be looking at this, and that his ears are open and his eyes are open, and he can really hear, or she, I'm not sure if it's a education. So I would say in some ways, it's fascinating to me that people say, well, my child has to get an education, but they have to go to school, so I've just got to do this thing. If you think about it, we're trying to increase our child's minds and their brains. In order to do that, we have to put their brains at risk. And that's crazy. And that's really what we're talking about. And you have to wrap your head around the numbers. It's gigantic. We are at, really, the poll last year said that the United States, we have 1 in 45 children are now on the autism spectrum. When you talk to specialists, they believe that 1 in 2 children being born now are ultimately ending up on the autism spectrum. And African Americans are even more susceptible, and then specifically African American boys beyond that. And then when we travel around, so you're thinking, well, 1 in 45 children, and we're traveling to different cities every single day, and it's not just the MMR vaccine. Parents come up to us, every single vaccine that's on the program now is being blamed for the death or the destruction of somebody's child. And so if you think if 1 in 45 children have autism, and then parents are complaining to us every night, 4, 5, 6 parents come up that their child died from a vaccine, that's not in that 1 in 45, so that's shrinking that number. And how about the ones that have childhood leukemia, or MS, or deadly food allergy, asthma, ADD, ADHD, all of these illnesses that we didn't have when we were kids. This didn't exist. And yet we're being told this is normal. We're being told that our DNA is messed up. That as parents, it's our fault. It's your fault that that child can't focus in school, can't concentrate. And for the first time since we took lead out of gasoline, the IQ of specifically boys or men in this country just dropped. The SAT scores that came in for universities, men couldn't pass it. They had to lower the level, the number, to get men into college. And that we had that same problem when we had lead poisoning. That's why we took lead out of gasoline. It's a very difficult thing to see, a slow IQ drop. How do you see a loss of, was it 5 to 7 points of IQ across the nation? Well, we're seeing it. So even those that think they didn't get autism, or my child's fine, they're safe, they've gotten the vaccines, they're fine. Really? They don't have eczema. They don't have ADD, ADHD. They're passing all of their grades. They're doing well in school. They're focused. They're not going to have a future with MS or other autoimmune diseases. It's just, I worked on the Doctor's Television Show, and we stated this as a fact. This is the first generation of children in this country that will not live to be as old as their parents. That should scare everybody to death. Another fact, the third leading cause of death now is hospitals. That's a fact. Over 250,000 people a year are being killed in hospitals for reasons other than they entered. So allergic reactions to vaccines and drugs, or surgeries that go wrong, or they cut the wrong thing out, or they made a mistake. Medical mistakes and diseases you weren't supposed to catch while you're there. So we're being killed by our medical system now. We have more babies die on the first day of life in America than every other industrialized nation combined. What do we do differently than them? We vaccinate a baby the day it's born with a sexually transmitted disease, hepatitis B, that they will not come in contact with until they're sexually active or, God forbid, sharing needles. So why are we doing this? What is this insanity? So at a certain point, what I say is, you have to know when you're in a crisis. You have to know. I think about Nazi Germany. I think about our history of slavery. I think about how my Native American side of my family was treated. One of the reasons my mom raised me the way she did to try and avoid, too much medicine and too many doctors, because as a Native American, her family was poor, and the local pediatrician would give them free health care if they tested all the new vaccines coming through town for my mother and her two sisters. So this is how they think. They've done it with your community over and over and over again, testing on you. Vaccines are extremely dangerous. But in the middle of this, we have always stood up. We're a magnificent people. As the leadership has stood up. We founded a nation. We left, the UK to start our own nation and allow freedom. We've had Malcolm X's and Martin Luther King's, and different people that stand up and make a difference. And that's inside of all of us. We have that power. And all of those voices have always said the same thing. They're trying to make you feel small. They're trying to make you feel weak. They want you to feel powerless. They want you to turn on your news station so that you argue with your friend that listens to the other news station. They want you arguing Republican or Democrat. They want you talking about, is Hillary Clinton's emails this, or Donald Trump's thing that. They don't want you talking about the stories. They don't want you talking about what you care about. Because if we start to talk to each other and we stop blaming what the news and the distractions are trying to get us to blame, we're going to realize, wait a minute, we are all in agreement with what's happening here. We all agree the banking industry destroyed the middle class. We all agree that police brutality is happening, and thank God now cameras are capturing it. We all agree that we should be brothers and sisters in here, and we outnumber them. Totally.
In regards to the DNA, because I had two vaccine-injured sons, because they both were diagnosed autistic, I went to Children's Hospital Oakland to see a behaviorist. And one of his interests was because I had two autistic children, he wanted to find out if there was a DNA issue. And he tested my boys and found that there was no genetic precursor for autism. Now, 2 years later, maybe 2 to 3 years later, he came back and called me again and said, hey, we have a new test that's a little more sensitive. Can you bring your boys in and have them tested again? I said, sure. I took my boys back in again, and there was no genetic precursor. So I'm saying this to say that don't let them lie to you. I don't care if you have more than one child that's autistic. Don't let them lie to you. This is an issue with vaccines.
Yeah, I just wanted you to clarify why black boys? Why is there more black boys with autism?
Okay, the reason we don't know. I don't think this is working. Let me give you some possibilities of why that might be. There might be this bias. One is that it's real. One that it is that it's boys are more than girls anyway. We don't know why, but we think it's related to testosterone versus estrogen, the ability of estrogen to protect the brain, and testosterone actually increases the risk of an adverse reaction to something like mercury, for example. Now, is that the reason? We don't know, but it's a biological basis for that. The second thing is, there may be a genuine genetic predisposition in African American boys that may be related, for example, to vitamin D, something like that. That may be a reason. And the alternative, which is not exclusive, is that there may be an excess risk in African American children because it's the age at which you get exposed, 12 to 18 months. And for example, socioeconomically, more people in the community are dependent on welfare and food stamps. And to get those stamps, you've got to get your vaccines on schedule. So there is a social, a medical pressure on you to get your child vaccinated within that at-risk period, a high-risk period. Whereas other people say, well, I'm not dependent on food stamps or anything else, so I'll just delay it. So there may be socioeconomic reasons that put the African American community at greater risk. I don't know whether that's the answer. What I'm saying is there are a number of possibilities, and they're not exclusive. One doesn't exclude the other.
And they're not being explored either. Nobody is doing that. That sounds like being discouraged, and that's not acceptable.
Well, that's right. If they had not lied, if they had done their work all those years ago when they had these results, you would have an answer now. And that's the knock-on effect of this fraud, is that people have been denied the answers precisely because they lied to us all those years ago.
And we know and remember as African American people, this is not the first time such things have happened. That there's an adverse response and striking the African American community specifically, and nobody cares, because trying to get the grant to do the work to find out about that, like who's going to give the money. So we need to look at that systemic racism that's always been part of our country's history. I see your hand. I want to put out there that we want to probably want to get the family stories. So if there are families who want to share stories with her, please meet with her outside. She does not want to leave and not capture the amazing narrative from you. And then viewer next.
I have a talk. Am I next?
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. Could you please try to answer the question that powerful politicians have been caught saying, I won't say the names, that we are doing this because of overpopulation, and that we can justify it because the world is overpopulated. So therefore, it's the survival of the fittest. And that's even a striking situation. But I like to also speak to that I'm from a generation in Germany where they experimented on us, and in the late 60s, and I received immunity vaccine of polio, and I promptly got the polio. It was in 24 hours. It took me a whole year to slowly get over this. So there's no question in my mind that we have a legal regime here who is trying to experiment on the children. And the mere fact that the immigrants or the refugees who are coming over the border, when they come into various countries, that they give them the vaccines, we have over 50 who have already died because of they're not the bodies are not used to poison. So, and the other question that I have these days is, how is your life being threatened because some doctors where I live have received hate mail and live threats?
Okay, so first of all is, eugenics is the term you're speaking of, which is population control through vaccines. We get this question a lot. It's really the why are they doing it? We can tell by this story. Why would a government agency collude with the industry and put this many children at risk? We've had this talk a lot, and we've met with people that are very, very high up in discussing these things. And I don't know why. And certainly there's going to be much of this that is very suspicious. But what I say is this: I don't know that the why matters that much. What matters is this happens. We're being poisoned. Our children are being poisoned. And I don't care if you believe in vaccines or you do not. Based on the history of the country you're referring to, and I've traveled a lot in the beautiful country, Germany, you know, we can return to the same mistakes we've made before historically if we're not aware of what's taking place. We cannot allow a government to own our babies or own us. We are not government property, which it says on the side of our bus. I'm amazed this state has passed SB 277.
Yeah.
Even if you believe in the 72 vaccines they just packed into your child, why would you hand that over to the government? Why would you do that? And you have to understand, in the Dr. Sullivan show, we were talking about nanotechnology and microchip vaccines that are going to be, you know, satellite controlled. And those are 5 to 10 years away. And Oklahoma just tried to pass a law just saying that they wanted the state to tell them what was in the vaccine. We just want the ingredients listed, and it was vetoed. Why can't we know what's in it? So can you imagine a country or a state that we live in right now where they can inject your baby, you don't know what's in it. Maybe it has microchips, maybe it doesn't, maybe they're tracking you, maybe they're not. But once you allow that to happen, that future, that science fiction movie has just been started. And I say, you may love your government now, but are you sure you're always going to be in control of it? Are you sure you're going to elect the next person elected? Do you want them to control your baby? And then the next is you. I guarantee you, this is not about 3% of an unvaccinated population of kids. The pharmaceutical industry wants 320 million mandatory customers. That's their agenda. They are basically, there's 300 vaccines in the pipeline. I think that they're basically trying to figure out how to call a drug a vaccine. Can I put some element into it that makes it a vaccine? Why? Because they don't have to test it if it's a vaccine. I mean, think about how insane that is. Grandpa's Viagra got tested for years and years and years to see if it caused cancer or other problems. That hepatitis B vaccine that's being injected into your day one old baby was tested for 4 days. A long vaccine testing schedule is a month. I mean, this type of craziness must stop, but we can't allow this. Is it eugenics? I don't know, but you can certainly imagine that if you get someone into this government that thinks that way, wants to control the population and sees that as a problem, and hey, look, they've already signed away all their rights. I can inject them with whatever I want. Well, then you can guarantee we're going to start seeing populations where we're like, well, let's go ahead and sterilize that group of people because they don't represent something I think we need in the society. Oh, they lost all their jobs in that state. Well, they're kind of overpopulated there. They can't work, so let's go ahead and sterilize the people in that state. That's possible. I'm not going to say it's going to happen, and maybe it's a conspiracy theory, but it's possible the moment you give up your strength and your power to the government. And that's why we've got to stop SB 277 and every single law like in this nation, or we will be living in a country. Yeah.
My son was her first one that had when he ended in the ICU and he got IV antibiotics because they wouldn't admit he had Hep B. He got it first. Then he was harmed by that NMR. And thank God, people kept telling me, and I kept looking at them like they were crazy, that it was a vaccine, and I finally listened after the NMR. And we ended up going to Foxwell House where Dr. Wakefield was in Austin, Texas. And my son had been banging himself into walls because of pain. And because of Dr. Wakefield's work, I realized it wasn't because they were trying to give him M&Ms to stop it. I mean, they were acting like it was a behavior, but it wasn't a behavior, and I realized it was because he was in pain. We went to Foxwell House, and they treated him for the gastrointestinal problem. They did a scope, they did a pill cam, and he is totally so much better because of those biomedical interventions we did. And
Dr. Wakefield is my hero because of this, but if Dr. Wakefield had been listened to, so many other children could have been helped. And that's what makes me sick. One is that this keeps happening. Two, that we had to go all the way to Austin. Luckily, my husband at the time had a good job and we could do it. We had to pay our own money. It was like $5,000 or something like that. It was Dr. Kurtzman. But this is ridiculous. This has been known since the time that Dr. Wakefield did this research in England. And we were helped, but how many children could have been helped? How many children are in pain right now? How many children in my child's special ed class were rolling on the floor at the time that I realized this because he was in pain? So I thank you very much, and I thank all the heroes out there. I thank all the parents that spoke up and risked me looking at them like they were crazy because I couldn't stand to believe it. And that's why I do it now. And when people look at me like I'm crazy, I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Because you're going to hear it from a few more people, and you're going to wake up, and you're going to believe it. And I thank you very much.
Okay, so take a nice deep breath together. We're going to call our wonderful evening to an end. And please speak to me if you'd like to be included in my parents group. Right now we're a group for parents of color, but I'd like to start another group for other parents. The vaccine groups on Facebook are loaded with trolls, loaded with people who frighten you and misinform you. And I have the strict grandma clause on my group, so that's not happening. We can start that. We'll start with consulting each other, educating each other, and getting out there on the street if we need to. So thank you.
Dr. Rachel Ross, who appears in the film, the star of the doctors, I was unaware when I was doing that interview that she was pregnant at the time. So when she made that statement, I wouldn't give the MMR to my baby. She really hasn't given the MMR to her baby. I just spoke to her about a month ago. Her baby was 9 weeks old. And what she said was, Del, I want to thank you for bringing this information to me. I have not vaccinated my baby. In my 10 years, she's in Gary, Indiana, a completely African-American community. What she said to me is, Del, my baby's 9 weeks old now, and I have the healthiest baby I've ever seen in my practice. And she says I have a duality about it because I love this baby and it's amazing how healthy she is. And I think about how I've been poisoning children every day. So I would say for those of you that are questioning where this is at and the communities that you're in, look for Dr. Rachel on her Facebook and Dr. Rachel Ross on her website because she's continued to report. She's brand new. This is a doctor. She's doing her research and she's studying and she's very outspoken about what she's learning as she's going along. And I think it'd be good for you to share with your friends because she's a true hero. She's risking her career right now because she's coming out to your community to make sure that you know that this is wrong. And so I really want to thank you. God bless all of you. And seriously, God bless the United States of America.